Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi, and this is Taking Care of Business. Joining me today is Mark Blackwell, who is chair of the Opportunity Calgary Investment Fund. Thanks for joining us today, Mark.
Thanks, Mario, for having me on.
Big news today, a contribution of $6 million by the fund to the Accelerator Fund 3. Can you explain just a little bit about what Accelerator Fund 3 is and just what this arrangement and partnership is all about?
Yeah, well, great question. So I think today's announcement shows a bit of the evolution of how we're thinking about things at OSIF. About 6 months ago, we went back to City Council recognizing pretty significant gap in the ecosystem. So we had spent 6 months doing a study with consultants, chatting with leaders in the ecosystem to identify, what the big gaps were. And one of the consistent pieces of feedback that came back was early stage access to capital, risk capital, seed stage funding for startups. And so as an organization, still very much startup ourselves, 2.5 years old, really saw a critical need for us to go fill that gap. And so 3.5 months ago, we went out to RFP. We interviewed a handful of external investment managers, all that had various track records of investing in the local ecosystem. And we identified Accelerate Fund to be one of those top funds. And so today's announcement is the culmination of 3.5 months of due diligence and work with the organization. And the goal of it really is to leverage the expertise, the network, the know-how of the Accelerate Fund. This group cumulatively has been together for 20 plus years, investing in Alberta seed stage companies, have a long track record of investing in 20 plus companies from really early stage formation all the way to exit. And so for us, it maintains the origins of the focus of what OSIF is here to do. And now we're just working with a really high qualified third-party manager as an extension of OSIF to invest in startups on our behalf.
Now, did I see correctly that there would be a matching amount in terms of the dollar amount there?
That's right. So two components on kind of leverage dollars. First of all, Alberta Enterprise Corporation, which is the organization that was the original, I guess, seed funder in the Accelerate model, is coming to the table. Plus, there's third-party family offices, angel investors that have pooled their capital. So our $6 million is going towards an overall leverage of 16.9 million. So the total fund size that the organization is looking to shoot for is 25 million. In addition to that, the organization requires 1-for-1 matching funding in every investment that they make. And the reason why they're doing this is because this is another thing that stood out from the Accelerate Fund. They're leveraging the expertise and capital of outside angel investors and family offices to bring them into opportunities and investments alongside them. And so we can imagine, I think I said today, for every dollar that OSIF invests, there'll be another $2.33 invested as part of that. And so we're getting real true leverage. And then the other part of it, we're partnering and crystal clear aligned with the provincial government as we look at investing the capital.
Okay, super. Tell me the importance and significance of something like this. Also, jog my memory if I'm right, but did you not announce something similar? Was it last week in terms of a similar investment?
Yeah, so we had 2 concurrent RFPs we're running. The first RFP was really focused around incubators and accelerators. These are attracting the best in the world to come to Calgary, and we made a $7 million investment into Plug and Play. So Plug and Play operates, I think, now in 36 different jurisdictions around the world. Yeah. They've got incubators and accelerators from healthcare to agriculture to supply chain. Think of that as the front end of the funnel. This is an organization that's working with early stage startups, some back in the napkin ideas that are starting from early formation. The company comes in, provides really disciplined programming on sales, marketing, engineering, team scale up, and governance. Then imagine the back end of that funnel, we have the Accelerate Fund now. So as those companies graduate through all these programs, think of Harvest or Plug and Play investments we made in the past. Those companies think of graduating from these programs and then are going to be going to the market to raise capital. And as they do that, we now have an extension of OSIF through the Accelerate Fund that will be sitting on the back end to fund the best and brightest that come out of all the programs that we've incubated.
Okay, Mark, tell me and tell our viewers a little bit about the Opportunity Calgary Investment Fund, what it is and what its purpose is.
Yeah, so it was a bold initiative, 3 or 4 years ago that was really started pre-pandemic to think about how we as an organization can think about providing stimulus in many ways, shapes, and forms. And I think we have three really strong key pillars of what we are looking to. So provided incentives and the big blocks that we work towards. One is talent. So I don't think if you talk to every CEO of every tech company in Calgary, the thing that keeps them up at night is being able to recruit and retain really good people. And so we had to make really strong foundational investments into organizations like SAIT through the Digital Technologies Hub. We made investments in an organization called Alta ML. So part of that is like, we got to make sure that we have people and capacity to fund the small, medium businesses that are growing in the city. The second big bucket of that was how do we effectively get the right programming, what I kind of call scaffolding in place to help those companies grow and scale. And that's access to international networks, access to customers, governance, sales, marketing. These are all just the regular building blocks required to help companies grow in the city. And I think we've done a great job of attracting outside organizations like Plug and Play, but we've also backed local based organizations like Harvest Ventures, which has started NEO. And when we invested originally, NEO's gone from 0 to over 200 employees in 18 months. And that's the velocity and scale of the types of businesses that are growing in the city. And then I'd say the third bucket, which we announced today, is capital. So how do we make sure that we have the right capital formation, the right early stage venture to back our best and brightest in the city and to make sure they stay here? And so from us, like the fund is not uncommon in other jurisdictions around North America. So we've really kind of taken the playbook from other jurisdictions like New Orleans and Detroit that have established similar funds, thinking about how they can stimulate the economy, invest in infrastructure to make sure that there's a healthy ecosystem to grow and scale companies.
Yeah. What was the total amount that the fund started at?
100 million. Originally, actually, it was about 10 when we started the original conversations with the previous chair, Barry. But then we went back to the city and we convinced them to think of a much bigger scale. And so we ended up landing on 100 million. And
can you explain that relationship between where the fund fits in between the city and Calgary economic development? Can you talk a little bit about that?
So we're a fully owned operating subsidiary, and we work very closely with our partners at Calgary Economic Development. So we actually have a master service agreement with the CED. We share staff, we share knowledge and know-how because the two things kind of fit together.
Yeah.
CED's purpose is around economic development and trade. So they're out attracting new business opportunities, supporting the local based ecosystem, and OSIF really is a tool, an extension that the city and CED can use as an attraction mechanism. And so you look at OSIF, we now have Invest Alberta. There's multiple components now that we're drawing on to really think about how we attract the best and brightest. And, it's table stakes, quite frankly. Like you look across the country, I see what's happening in Ontario, Quebec, Nova Scotia. All the governments now are setting up similar funds like this. And quite frankly, they have a full stack approach of how they're thinking about the city of Montreal, the government of Quebec, the pension funds in really attracting companies and talent.
Yeah.
And so for us, I kind of look at this as table stakes and how we compete in this really globally competitive market for companies and people.
Yeah, exactly. And Mark, I don't know if you have the numbers handy or not, but give me a sense of how many companies have you dished out money to and how much money has gone out so far?
So as of today, we've made our 18th investment. And as part of that, with the investment today, we'll be at $56 million. And so with halfway there. And so it's been everything in education, life science innovation hub, the University of Calgary, the SAIT DX hub at SAIT. We've made investments in high growth businesses. And this is part of our anchors and stars strategy. How do we keep the best companies? So we made really foundational investments into antibiotics as an example. As we see competing jurisdictions have different incentives. And this is, again, just one tool in the toolbox for the city to think about global competitiveness.
Now, one last thing I was going to ask you, Mark, you mentioned plug and play and you mentioned that, this today, obviously last week, we also had the announcement of the Amazon Web Services. How are you feeling these days about Calgary and its future?
I've probably never been more enthused. Look, I moved back to Calgary, born and raised here, spent 3 years of my life in Silicon Valley, living in a hacker house, and rode my bike every day to plug and play for 19 months. I came back and like, I think the energy, the tides have shifted, the narrative is changing. Everyone's singing from the same hymn sheet, the province, the city, our CEOs, and we're starting to see kind of early indications of us starting to catch up to other jurisdictions. And so Amazon, Emphasis, all the big financings that have happened here, I think the tides are changing, but I also just say we're maybe in the first or second inning of it. And so we have a lot of catch up to do, but I think we're planting the right seeds for us to yield some of the fruit very quickly.
All right, super. Thanks, Mark, for joining us today.
Awesome. Thanks, Mario.
All right, super. That was Mark Blackwell, who is chair of the Opportunity Calgary Investment Fund. I'm Mario Toneguzzi. This has been Taking Care of Business. Thanks for joining us today.